It's 3:09 p.m. Mr. Frost,
Here.
Mr. Kazel,
Present.
Mr. Lumpkin, Ms. Morgan,
Here.
Ms. Murphy.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Our first item of business is the review of the August 23rd meeting minutes. Those have been prepared and distributed to all commission members for their review. Are there any changes or additions to those minutes?
No.
Not seeing any. Do we have a motion to approve the August 23rd meeting minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan.
Second.
Mr. Kazel with a second. Any further discussion on the minutes? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are all in favor of those. The minutes are approved, and now we'll move to public comment. I think what we'll do is the same as we've done before. We'll go to the webinar first. So I'll ask the clerk, is there any online comment coming to us today?
Is there anyone online on the webinar who would like to give public comment at this time? Okay. Hearing none, is there, I do have some public comment from the audience.
Thank you. Please, let's proceed with the in-person public comment.
Yes. Catherine LaCroix.
You are.
Catherine LaCroix. I am the co-president of the League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland. The other co-president you heard earlier from Lisa Check on August 17th. As you know, the League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland has been following this process with interest. We've proposed a map that, in our view, best serves the goals we feel are most important: minimal population variation, political and ethnic equity, geographic compactness, keeping communities of interest together, and competitiveness. We appreciate the good qualities of the existing maps that we are currently reviewing and redrawing. The current map assures a diversity of opinion and representation on the council. However, we are concerned at an emphasis we have been hearing on another map-making criterion, namely minimal disruption. We should not draw district lines to protect incumbents. We should draw district lines to empower voters. That is the essence of the phrase we often hear: voters should choose their representatives. Representatives should not choose their voters. If maps close to the current one appropriately represent voters with minimal population variation, that's fine. But minimal disruption is not by itself an appropriate goal. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. And actually, before we move on to the next public comment, I'll just say I want to thank the League for their involvement in this process. I personally have studied your submission in good detail. I'm sure my colleagues have as well. So we won't maybe directly respond to some of your comments now, but I think you will also see some of the rest addressed in the course of this meeting. So thank you.
Next public comment is Lou.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Well, I did say that I was pretty proud of our process here. Commissioners are not politicians. However, the input should be from everybody. With this short time frame, it's very hard for us to really go out to the community deeply to get a voice from the real people. I myself, I do represent certain type of populations in our county. So I have to say, at the same time, I'm also disappointed because if we don't take this time to withdraw the map from scratch, certain particular 3 districts right now we can show from the maps we had before and all the proposed ones. Now you can see there are 3 districts are the ones continuously having troubles. These are the ones we get more poverties and deeper poverties. And these will actually increase all the inequities people complain about. However, if you want to go for certain people's, their community interests, then should you also consider other groups of people's community interests? Do we want to have a county with all different communities, with all the kinds of gaps to ensure racial segregation, economic segregation, even digital divide to continue, to worsen certain people's life, to force them even out of this county? The reason we have these 3 districts losing population, they are not really completely gone from the county. They become either the homeless or whatever reason, they were not counted, the undercounted population. So please, commissioners, please think about the reality. To minimize the destruction actually is not helping everybody for all. Yes, certain people think it's good to keep their school district together, to keep their community together. But if they really understand the idea of democracy is everything should be also communicated, shared, informed properly, so everybody can actually vote, then the minimized destruction actually is not helping everybody for the long run. That means our poverty will continue, go deeper. That means we will lose more population on the paper. Undercount population will increase. Does that really help anything? Not really. Only very few people in the whole county will be benefited from that. Please avoid this tragic. Thank you.
Pastor Anthony Small.
Yeah, I had my shots. I'm good to go. Listen, good afternoon to all of you. I come to represent the East Cleveland Concerned pastors. I also pastor at the Starlight Missionary Baptist Church right in the great city of East Cleveland. As you know, there are a lot of our people that are concerned about governmental influence. And as in the past, a lot of them still did not take the census that were needed. And I'm sure you looked over the voting registration. We have over 17.5 thousand people in East Cleveland. But unfortunately, less than 600 voted because they're still thinking the big lie counts, that their vote does not count. And even when they came around to do census, we worked with the commissioners here to make sure everybody was counted. And unfortunately, everybody didn't fill out that sheet. But you can clearly see there are more people within my little city than is on register. So I come to plead with you to make sure that you be just in your decision as far as it comes for this redistricting. I would pray that you at least give 20% over that what we have already registered on your books, so that our people may continue to receive that which is so richly needed from this county. That is my prayer. Thank you. God bless you.
Councilmember Yvonne Conwell.
Good afternoon to Commissioners Frost, Kessel, Lumpkin, Morgan, and Murphy. In my ride down here, yesterday evening, we got the maps. I did watch the redistricting meeting. And so I didn't have time to look at them right then, but I did process them at the end of the day. So I was looking at the African-American districts, which one of them I represent, District 7, and I was looking at the numbers and the percentages that were between them. So what I'm here to ask you today, I've never been as low as 50%, and I wanted you to take a look at tweaking that if you could, or looking at it to make sure that between the 60% that 8 and 9 has, and District 10 has almost 60%, to do a fair assessment of that. unfortunately, this is our time, and I agree with the Women League voters that, you know, people need to pick their representation. But it's also hard when we, and I've heard several of you mention this, that we haven't educated Cuyahoga County residents well enough to know about the redistricting, about the census, and things of that nature. So it's very impactful for the odd numbers of districts that will be running in May. Number one, this process, which is, you know, kind of condensed for all of us, and to be able to, you know, I was just talking to the gentleman from Board of Elections. How soon will the maps be out? You know, I'm one of those ones that like to go door to door and meet my residents. And District 7, the way it sits, has always, through the beginning, have always been shifted. You know, either added, deleted, whatever, going to what Pastor Smalls talks about. Yes, a lot of our individuals are not educated. They do not fill out the census. And believe me, I started 2 years earlier on this process for this time, so it could be a little better. Maybe some of the work that I did kept us from being just 15,000 shy countywide, not losing a lot of population, and educating individuals about how important this is. Not just for who your representative is, don't get me wrong, but also your community, the roads, everything that comes with it, your school districts, the funding. It's very important. So I've always been a mantra, this has always been my mantra to get this done. So as I was driving down today to share that with you guys, when I came in, I was privy to the new maps. So it may discount what I've come before you to say today. So I just wanted to bring your attention to that as you're looking at the maps, and make sure that there's an even representation. Oh, I did go over 3 minutes. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that concludes public comment at this time, but I would like to state that for the record, Mayor Patrick Cooney, City of Fairview Park, was unable to attend but submitted public comment and correspondence to the commission. Microphone check, please.
Microphone check. Thank you. Thank you to the clerk for that. And I was looking here. We had one other submission. Dr. Mark Salling, who had proposed the map that he had sent yesterday. Do you have that email there? Can I borrow that?
Sorry.
I can't find my version of it. He did. I did invite him to present today. And he is not able to be here today, but did submit an email. It was to me, but I had asked that this be printed out, given to all the commissioners, and it would be part of our record as well. So we have that. Thanks, Joe. It's here. It's just under everything else that's here. With that, we will move forward. That was the completion of public comment with receiving the letter from Mayor Cooney and the email to me from Dr. Mark Salling. So we're now ready to move on to Mr. Rusnack's team and the items for consideration today. Mr. Rusnack, how are you this afternoon?
Well, thank you, and you?
Well, I think I caused you to get less sleep last night, but here we are at 3 p.m. today. So.
We're all good. So thank you, Chairman Frost and commission members, for, I think, the constructive feedback and the responses that we received yesterday to what we presented. If we may pull up the PowerPoint here and we'll get started.
And actually, Jeff, as you're getting started, I want to make a slight introductory comment alluding to me causing you to get less sleep. And it goes back even to the comment we had from the League of Women Voters just a bit ago. I certainly agree that the map drawing process, just on the basis of minimal disruption, is not a way to go about looking at new districts. I will also say that what we've been through in the course of about 2 weeks of, I won't call it maximum disruption, but over 13% of the population moving into new districts when we had set a goal and kind of had a bar from last time of keeping that under 10% or lower, that it was an important exercise to see what happened if we upended the map. It was also an important thought exercise to see what happens if we had as little disruption as possible. And I, for one, was actually surprised by how close we came to a very workable, defensible, equal, and representative map with some very minimal disruption. Now, in the course of the last 20 hours or so, we've had to put maybe a little bit more disruption back into that. But really, I think that's what this process has brought us to as we consider all of the criteria, both in the charter and the aspirational criteria that we have laid out. So with that, as your intro,
Thank you.
please proceed.
And I would agree from our perspective and our team's perspective, it is a factor that is considered, the number of people who are moving, the percentage of residents that shifted, but it's not the only or the first factor that's considered. It's one of many factors that weighs in. And I think what you'll see, fortunately, I did not anticipate us being able to present a new map today or a new set of maps today. Based on the feedback we got yesterday, I didn't think we would be able to turn it around that quickly and address, I think, the questions and comments that we heard yesterday, but I will say that we were able to do so. And so I think what you'll see today is an improvement on what was presented yesterday in terms of some of the major issues that were, the concerns that were raised, in particular about minority representation, and which I think is a valid and an important concern in that one district, which was right on the edge at 50.02%. And so we will go through the few comments that have come in and since last night. It was just about 7:30 last night when we wrapped up the presentation or discussion of this new map, what we call the response map, in response to what we've heard. And I think that's a better term than some of the other terminology we've been using in labeling of the maps. Any outstanding decision points from your perspective, anything that you need from us that would help you continue to move along in this process as well. And then we can give you just a quick update on outreach. And I apologize because I did not put my glasses on, so I'm going to go grab those.
Okay.
If they're- So responses to questions and comments that we've received. There are some, as I think as the chair mentioned, we have heard from Mark Salling at Cleveland State, not only about the map that they submitted, but a kind of a follow-up email in regards to that. And I'm going to hold that for a second and let Michael Muller from our team provide some feedback on that and a short summary or analysis of it. We did also get another comment about District 1 and splitting that up and keeping it whole, and so they appreciated that. There is a comment about Highland Heights and Richmond Heights that we received. I'm not sure that I quite understand it because it references them being in District 3 and District 4, which they are not. So we'll try and decipher that and understand exactly what the question is. And then in addition, we received an email from Will Tarter, who served on the County Charter Commission, and he's asking about the compactness of District 6 in particular. And so if we could address that, I think we've covered compactness as a priority and important point throughout this meeting, but if we want to get into more detail on that, we certainly could do that. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael Muller to talk about the proposed map from Bob Dykes at Triad Research and Mark Salling from Cleveland State.
And Mr. Resnick, as a reminder, I would ask that all the presenters keep their videos turned off until they are ready to present.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Mueller.
Sorry if I jumped the gun on that one, and well, go through this fairly quickly, but I had a chance to review and analyze Dr. Mark Salling and Bob Dyke's map, and I think there's some areas that we've covered in some of the previous forms, in particular District 1, where Rocky River was originally out of CD1. And now is under their map would also be out. And we've heard some of the testimony of maintaining that community of interest. That was something that we flagged as we were reviewing the map. The other area that struck us is that we've gone through a number of iterations in making sure that University Heights, the cultural centers in that area are maintained as a community of interest. We saw that would be broken apart under that map. We're still going through some of the larger analytics on racial and demographic shifts, which obviously are an important factor in how we look at that map. But I think one of the key areas that they attempted was to tighten deviation. And I think we've talked about this cascading effect, or waterfall effect, to quote Matt Cassidy from yesterday's hearing. And the big challenge that we face as we go through this is that as we approach trying to get to a more perfect deviation, we have run into several serious community of interest challenges that we've tried to address in further iterations of map drawers. I will say the other issue that would be raised as we go through that approach is that being sensitive to the fact of trying to keep the minority populations, whole. And I think that's one of the areas that I'd like to, moving off of this map, just touch on the challenges of District 6 and compactness and the online submission that we received from Mr. Tartar. The big challenge that we do face as we go through this is that in trying to achieve compactness, which is one of the criteria to weight, if you put compactness higher on that list, it tends to put us in a position where you could very well wind up with one of two scenarios. And one is you could very easily wind up then by removing number of the communities in the southern end of the 6 to make it more compact. As you start to spread population, does create some very significant challenges with how we wind up managing some of the minority populations staying above the majority threshold for Black and African American communities, which we've also heard testimony during this process. And so I think this is really on a lot of levels, this is the philosophical difference of how do you weight these criterias, which are all very important criterias. And in some areas we've been able to maintain compactness, and in some districts improve it. But as we've gone through that process, it does have some unintended consequences as well. So, as we look at the factors, and this is an area where we really weigh on the commissioners and the public feedback to make sure that we are on the right path, I think we've come to a place that the most recent iterations, and of course what you'll see today, really does try to address the community of interest and would speak to, I think, the testimony that we've heard, from a number of participants in this process. And so this is the delicate balancing act that we're going through. And so that was, one of the challenges of achieving compactness as we go through this, process. So with that, that's what I had on the online submissions as well. So with that, I will turn it back to Jeff.
Thanks, Michael. And let me just add a couple of points about the map in particular from Dr. Salling and Bob Dykes. Not only was District 1 split up, but also District 11 was significantly altered and changed to the point that I think, as Michael was mentioning, Cleveland Heights, University Heights School District would be divided. Lyndhurst South Euclid school districts would be divided as well. And the council member in District 11 would now, that's currently in District 11, would be now residing in District 10. And so there are, does create some issues and challenges In addition, the other thing that I think one of the things we were trying to do was reduce the number, if possible, the number of ways Cleveland was split up, and this actually does increase it to a 7-way split as opposed to a 6-way split. So I just want to add those additional points to that as well in terms of the review of that map.
Mr. Rusnick, if I may, I have a comment or two there, and other commissioners may as well. I value the submission, any submissions that we get, as I said before about the league. When we received the one from Triad Research and Dr. Salling, it looked very familiar to me because as I have been working with maps, and as we had seen, not just whether we were making a change between Rocky River and Brook Park in Ward 2, but in Districts 1 and 2, but what some of these other changes might be. And so this isn't to criticize their efforts. Their efforts were admirable. They ran into some of the same obstacles I was running into and that we as a body working here were running into, such as really not finding a good way to reduce or to increase the compactness in District 6, for example. Or, as we know, we have really worked on to see if we could reduce the number of times that the city of Cleveland was cut. You referred to this at the end of your comments, that their solution for some of the compactness issues on what would be their new District 1 was to cut Cleveland yet again. And so I think that many of the factors that clearly guided them in their effort, we're going to see embodied in what I hope will be a final map that we come to very soon. So again, I thank them for that proposal. Did anyone else want to speak to the Triad Research submission?
No, I would just agree with your comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Okay.
I agree too. I don't know when to say this, so I'm going to say it now because I can. When I think of myself as an ordinary citizen and voting and who represents me, I think of my Ward 16 representative. I think of the mayor of Cleveland. I live in the city of Cleveland. I don't think of Cuyahoga County councilman. My councilman is Dale Miller. I think he's run unopposed for the last 11 years since I've lived in Cleveland. I mention that because I think it's important to recognize what we're really dealing with here, which is regional government. I appreciate everyone's concern about democracy, representation, poverty, LGBTQ issues, but it would be unfair to lay all of the blame or the success on the Cuyahoga County Council administration or governance. The value add that I have come to see in this process and this whole structure that was established 10 years ago is regional government. Issues like what happens when schools in the suburbs opt for ed choice or vouchers and take people out of the city of Cleveland, perhaps, or the benefits of OSU Extension and county farming, or the issue of county jail that the council has to deal with. That to me is the value of this that goes beyond any one city and really addresses the purpose of this council in the first place. So again, I affirm what my other colleagues have said. I think we've really tried sincerely and apolitically to balance population distribution, continuity, racial disparity, and I'm satisfied so far as we've come. I hope we can make it even better before we finish.
Any other comments? Yes, Ms. Morgan.
Thank you. I would agree with the good father here on his comments and say that we're making progress, and I think that we're making progress at lightning speed, and yet I think that there is more that we can do to polish these maps and make them the best that they can be. There's no doubt that they won't be perfect. There is no such thing as perfection. Well, I guess there is, but it won't be on these maps. I think that we're all working hard. We have dedicated lots of time to this and lots of brain power. We all have our thoughts and feelings about what is important to us. individually and as a group, and I just hope that this process will end having the highest and best use for Cuyahoga County. Thanks.
Very good. And
Chairman,
Mr. Lumpkin.
also, just to add a little small piece of this, I've also listened to some of the comments from the public, and I try and engage those comments in terms of minority impact on anything that we do here. And I think some of my colleagues in the community is expecting me to raise those issues where there's a potential dilution of votes or potential packing or anything that affects the residents that has a potential of again, diluting the participation of the voting and the franchise of that we work so hard for. I have not seen personally anything that suggests that there has been a deliberate effort to dilute minority representation in any of the models that I've seen. This is my second 10 years of doing this. I do know that because of those huge loss of population in certain areas of this region, there's going to be change, and that change is not going to be accepted if we don't articulate why we're making the change. And that's part of this process is to make sure that the public understands that the change is being made, primarily being driven by population loss as well as community interest, as well as people who are going to be disenfranchised and people who are going to be inconveniently placed because of the new precincts that are going to be developed. But again, all of these criteria that we are looking at, again, when I view it in terms of what impact does it have on minority representation in Cuyahoga County. So I feel comfortable at this point that at least we are trying to present models that has all of these criteria in play here, and I don't see that where there's anything that suggests otherwise to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Morgan, did you have another comment?
Yes, thank you. And I would add to that, and I think that our consultants would agree that we've spoken up around the topic of minority participation and potential dilution in various communities, and we've put them to their paces and put them through the ringer on this. And I don't think that there are any of us up here that will sit back and watch communities be diluted or disempowered. So, I'm looking forward to going through these maps. I'm sure I'll have comments and questions, and let's go.
All right, please proceed.
Thank you. So before we get into the details on the maps, I do want to just add a couple of cover comments or overview comments about them. One of the things that was requested yesterday that I didn't touch on in questions and comments, but in setting the stage for a response to the maps, was to check with the individual county council members in terms of the shifting or the changes that were occurring in those precincts. I'm happy to report that we did make contact with all 11. Emails were sent out to all 11 council members inviting comment, suggestions, feedback, whatever local issues they saw or that may have arisen from the changes proposed yesterday. We heard back from 9 of the 11. We do not think that the other 2 had any comments to make. And I think the one specific comment came from in District 7 from Councilmember Conwell about the closeness of that threshold being at just 50.02% minority district. So I'm happy to report that based on what we did between last night and this morning, we are able to make some changes to that district and actually get it above what it currently is today. And so we did bump that number. We were able to bump it up to 52.6% in the maps that you have in front of you, which is an increase point of 0.25%. So we went from 50.02 to 52.6. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt Cassidy in a second. Again, what we were hoping to do was to finesse some of the issues that came up yesterday, address some of those issues, while still staying within that range of deviation of 10%, the total of 10 plus 6 to minus 4, but it could be in theory it could be minus 6 to plus 4 or somewhere in there. But as it turns out, because of the issues, as we all know, in District 1, that plus 6 is kind of the marker on the high end. So I'll turn it over to Matt to walk through, and then we can discuss them after.
Thank you, Mr. Rosnack, and thank you, commissioners, for this opportunity. As I think has been implied, due to the short turnaround time, we're not about to present some wholly different option. It's not, or nothing, completely you've not seen before. But we did want to respond to some of the requests, as Mr. Resnick has said, and try to shore up what most of the changes occur in 7 and some of the other and then just a few other precincts on some of the Cleveland boundaries. So for those that were either in attendance yesterday or attentive to what we had presented, much of the map will look the same, but I will point out the differences and offer some explanation as to what we were trying to accomplish. So again, the range of deviation, as Mr. Resnick had said, we're holding to that concept of within a total range of 10%. This is 9.9%. So from the smallest district or the least populated district at negative 3.9% to 6.0% at the top. Again, that's District 1. And then the disruption, this increased a little bit from, I think it was about 26,400 to 29,300 today. So, roughly 3,000 additional residents that would have new representatives under this current map. And that 3,000 is also equivalent to about 3 to 4 precincts in the areas where we're making the changes. And I think that's also, I think that there was 25 precincts altogether, 24 in Cleveland in the map that we showed that had switched districts yesterday. And I think that this map, it increases to 29 or I think 29 in Cleveland and then the one outside of Cleveland.
It's 25 and 30. Sorry to correct you there.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, so 25 yesterday and 30 today. So that increased, and that's equivalent to that roughly 3,000 in population. So, on to District 1. Again, this is, as been discussed, no change from yesterday, no change from the current configuration. So just same with Bay Village, Westlake, North Olmsted, Fairview Park, and Rocky River. Then District 2, there's a couple of small changes here. When you're, as we were in the map that we were working on previous, we were just trying to shift those boundaries within Cleveland, trying to, lower some of the deviation and, move just more incremental amounts of population. When you're doing that, just kind of going, just from the map maker's perspective anyways, where you're just kind of going back and forth, trying to get the, flipping one precinct or another, trying to get the numbers to sort of add up. and also to not, take away from any of the other objectives. What happened here was that there's two precincts that didn't necessarily need to be changed. One that had went to 3 and one that had went to 2. So we had undid that. Well, in total there was 3 that had went to 2, and then one going into 3 from 2. There's now, versus the current map, just 2 precincts that go into into District 3 from 2. So we just sort of rolled back those changes. The numbers still added up, and there's two less precincts that we're switching districts. And then again in District 3, so yeah, there's the change that is talked about on its western boundary with 2. And then I'm trying to think if there are additional changes here. I think that was all. The only just the changes with 2, and it's still at a little over 97% of its of the same constituents as now. Then districts 4 and 5, both no change from yesterday or today or from the current version. And 6, so everyone in this version of 6, this is the same as yesterday, but also everyone in this version of 6 is in District 6 now. There's just a few less to bring that within that positive 6%, and sending Brooklyn Heights to District 8. So that's the only change overall here versus the current, but otherwise same as the previous map. So District 7, that's really the crux of this map, the changes here. So both, as Councilwoman Conwell had spoke at the top of the meeting today, her comments were pretty accurate. And I don't know the full history of the shape of this district, but being as it is that, it's the only district that's wholly in Cleveland. And as such, it, is sort of shaped by the other districts around it and trying to keep it in Cleveland, and then trying to make some of those incremental changes and trying to balance some of that population. It just ends up going through District 7. So, and then, even more backstory for this map drawing process. When we were preparing the map that we had shown yesterday, we thought we were happy with it, and then had lost sight on that one number, that African American percentage, and it had easily, trying to make those changes for population, we had just momentarily lost sight on that, and it had dipped below 50%, which we definitely do not want. So with the map that we then ended up presenting, we made a few further late changes, and to at least get it over 50%. It was not that much over 50%. So that was highlighted during yesterday's meetings, and rightfully so. So that both, there's, with District 7, you can make more changes, and we were able to define that and increase it to 52.6% without, radically changing it. But they're, mostly just trading between District 7, 8, and 9, where they sort of intersect. We were able to increase the percentage, and I think the concern was rightfully raised. Trying to maintain that threshold, that's the opportunity for African Americans to elect a council person of their choosing, and so with we wouldn't want to have just a narrow margin above that threshold and especially if we do anticipate more population changes over the next decade. We would want to leave the map where there's a chance where it could easily regress below that. And it's an important standard to hold the maps to. So I think, both the chance to make those changes without, massive disruption and to elevate that percentage of the voters, a little bit more, I think we're worth it. Then on to District 8. So District 8, again, it takes in Brooklyn Heights as it has in the previous iteration. And then again, there was some further trading with 7 and with 9 to balance the population, and then to try to keep the African-American population in 7 over that threshold. And then in District 9, the same thing here. Again, just there was some trades with, it takes population from District 7 and it sent some population to District 8, just changes of several precincts, but is otherwise almost 96% the same as it is now. And then District 10, I believe there's no changes between yesterday and today. It had, in the previous iteration, just traded some along its border with Cleveland and took in a couple extra precincts from District 7 for about 2,000 citizens there, but still 98% from the previous District 10. Then District 11, both same as yesterday and same as the current configuration. And again, these are the charts just showing the constituency disruption. So as I've been going along, I've been referencing these charts. District 7, again, you can see on the far right is today's map, sort of in the order that we presented them. Again, a total of 29,000, a little over 29,000 people in different districts, and 2.3% of the county population. District 7, though, that is taken from District 3, 8, and 9, and is just below, it's still close to 90%, but just below 90% of its similar, or of it having the same constituents from the current 7. And then it also, in trading, had given population to both 8 and 10. 8 is the second, most disrupted at just over 7%, but nearly 93% are nearly 93% of the residents from the current District 8. I think that's, yep. And then again, the biggest difference here is under the response 1 from 50.02% in African American in District 7 up to 52.6. So a bit of an increase there, and pulling away from that threshold as opposed to being just over it by a handful of people as it was in the previous map. No other major changes though. Likewise, the 2% increase, or over 2% increase in District 7. You can see a likewise almost 2% decrease in District 8, but it's still at over 65% African American. And then District 3, again, has the largest Hispanic population, no iteration below 27%. So that stayed the same, no real changes in that respect. And here again are the compactness scores. I don't think there's any real changes, especially since these are just along the boundaries. Actually, yeah, it looks like 7 got a little less compact, marginally less because of the changes there, but everything else fairly steady. The most compact district is District 3 in about every map, Districts 3 or 4. So yeah, no major changes there. I think we'll move on to the questions on this map.
Does any commissioner have any questions of Mr. Cassidy or Mr. Rusnak from that presentation? Anyone have any comments about this response, this proposal? Mr. Kazel.
I like it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
was happy to see that issue with the minority-majority addressed.
I agree.
I think, it definitely, it's even a little higher than it was previously.
Correct. That is correct. It's about 0.25% higher.
I actually, Ms. Morgan, did you have any comments at this point? I have a question for Mr. Cassidy. You go ahead if you've got any.
Well, thanks. I too am happy to see that you made the changes that we had suggested or suggested that you at least address yesterday, particularly in those districts 7, 8, 9, and 10, where there's been really the greatest loss. That you were able to find some solutions that addressed all the issues that we brought up. So, for that, thank you. No more robbing Peter to pay Paul, I guess. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. And I know as well, Ms. Morgan, that one of the things that I had talked with Mr. Rusnak about after the meeting yesterday and again today was, is there another way to look at this where we can address that concern about how many times we cut the city of Cleveland that you have expressed? And I think the answer, it might be mathematically possible, but not on a map I've seen. Not on a map that adheres to all the other criteria that we must take into account. My one question for Mr. Cassidy and Mr. Rusnak, it's a pretty minor technical one, but there were in the current map a few split precincts. And I want to thank, I know John Eddy was here yesterday and is here again today from GIS at the Board of Elections. One of the things we need to do is make sure we eliminate those because even though they exist now, we're not allowed to adopt a map that has split precincts. And I know you had addressed most of them, but there was maybe at least one we still had to attend to. Are all of the split precincts eliminated in this proposal?
So based on the information we had yesterday, we did fix or address the one problem area. There was one that I learned of, another one, an additional one today that was pointed out to me that we do need to still address.
Okay.
Yeah, so I apologize there too. It's sort of a matter of sort of an iterative process with myself and working with the other members of our team, to lend their knowledge of it. And there was one version of the map that we were working on where I had all of those taken care of. And then we made a few other changes. And the one we ended up going with and packaging up to present today, I had not accounted for all of them. So it was just my error in the timing. But we are aware of them, and we'll make sure that they are certainly cleaned up on any final products. The one that was left off, I know today, was it doesn't affect the population anyways. It does not affect the numbers that you saw and that we presented, but we are aware of those and we'll make sure that they're taken care of.
And by not affecting the population, just so everybody understands and you all have the same information, there are split precincts that are actually empty. The split area has no population within it, so they're vacant areas. And so it is, we do kind of, sometimes that happens, and so we did, we've been consulting. There is one other issue that the board has recommended, Board of Elections has recommended. There's one other precinct that's in, if I remember correctly, it's in District 3, perhaps, but it, in Cleveland Ward 15 Precinct Q, that they have suggested there's some, for technical reasons, that it would be, it should move as well. I believe it's in County Council District 3, but City of Cleveland 15Q, they've asked us, and we'll take a look at that if it doesn't change things in a major way. I don't think it will. It shouldn't change things as well. There's a technical reason why they've requested it to be moved.
That's fine. We're at, I think, the decision points part of your presentation, so.
Yes. So I think what we're looking to in terms of guidance and direction from you is really, if there is anything else that is still outstanding. I think we've, this +6 -4, we're within that range. Again, just as a reminder to folks, if we try and get into +5 -5, there are different ways of doing it. We have taken many other looks at that and different ways to do that. I will say that it will bring about the point that was raised earlier about splitting municipalities is one option for doing that. And so if we are trying to keep communities whole, that will change that. And so I just want to remind folks here.
But I think that's maybe appropriate to address then one decision point, which we have alluded to and we've discussed around, and that is formally adopting a standard. We had looked at the +5 -5 standard. That's certainly a valid one in the state of Ohio. It is required in the Constitution for the drawing of state legislative districts. It is not required on us in this process. Really appreciate the work of the law department to give us their opinion on the suitability of both that standard and the other two. And given everything that we've evaluated, I do invite a motion that we adopt the 10% total deviation standard, if someone would like to move that. This is the standard that we've been working on of, whether it ends up +6 -4.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy.
I'll second.
Thank you. And I'm going to have some discussion on this, but I want to open up to the floor. Does anyone else want to address that issue on the 10% total deviation standard?
Well, I think you pretty much covered it, and I do also appreciate the memorandum from the law department. There are guides in looking at what we wanted to adopt for a standard. And I totally agree with some of your comments that, we tried to look at the five from the ideal, and there's just a lot that would have to change. And I think that this is fair, equitable, and I think it complies with our duty for substantially equal population to go with the 10%. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree. I think that this, frankly, it's our only choice because we already discussed not splitting up communities, not breaking up municipalities necessarily, and if we can't do one without the other. I do anticipate that 10 years hence, we will, maybe not us, but somebody up here will be maybe in a different position, and they're going to have to make those decisions. But right now, I think that we're working within the confines of really what we've decided we're going to do. And to that, then, I agree. I think that it's fine, and I stand with you.
Mr. Lumpkin.
Mr. Chairman, I made a comment earlier.
Excuse me, Mr.
10%
Lumpkin.
I think was a.
Mr. Lumpkin, I'm sorry, if
Yes,
you could
can you hear
speak a
me?
little louder. Thank you.
Yeah, I made a can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I made a comment earlier in the process that I didn't think that the 10% going forward, or well, I didn't say 10% then. I thought the deviation rates that we were working from, I didn't think it was sustainable or over a long period of time. I don't even think within the next 10 years that process will probably have to change itself. Now, again, I could be wrong. 10 years ago, we used 5%, and because of population changes, we now up to 10%. 10 years hence, going forward, you know, what happens? Do we use 15%? So I don't think that's sustainable, but I do think that for purposes of this process now, today, I think it's that percentage right now, I think create the kind of stability that we all have fought for. Not putting one over the other, I think that the fact that we talked about minimal disruption quite a bit, it didn't mean that we were putting that as a priority over other criteria. It just that a lot of questions that came to this body over the past week so it suggested we give answers to that. And it was a major concern out there. And I understand what the League of Women says, that we should not be even in the business of picking the leaders up here. Let the people pick the leaders. But again, most of the questions that were coming in and some of the issues that we had before this body were dealing with minimal disruption. And but that didn't mean that this body gave any less credence to the other criteria that has been established by this body. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I think that the consultants as well as the county, given the time constraints that we had, I mean, I think they did a yeoman's job, and so I'm pleased with what they've done so far. We still got a couple more things we got to do, but at least we got the information in front of us now that we can make credible decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kazel, anything on this?
Oh, I would concur, and I would just add, I don't think time constraints, frankly, were a factor. We just did it very fast. But I think it's efficient, it's effective, it's workable, it makes many people happy, a couple of people not as happy, not too happy. But I'm pleased. I couldn't have said it any better than any of my colleagues have.
Well, I would agree with that fully and add a couple more things. But while the time that we had, the time constraints were tough to work with, I really want to thank you, Mr. Rusnak, and your team, your accessibility, not just to us, but to others, to members of the public, taking time after meetings, really making the most of the time between meetings. I believe you could give us another month. We would still be coming to the same conclusion. And I say that because a couple of things. One, we've had a few proposals with us put before us, including some of the initial ones you presented, that did have more change of, more residents changing districts. And we know that's part of this process. It can't be the number of residents changing districts can't be a sole driving factor. But when we looked at changing, having greater change to the map, we didn't get a whole lot more tighter in terms of being more substantially equal. Substantially equal is a relative term, and in your first options, option 1 and option 3, only brought the range of population total deviation to within about 8.3 or 8.6. And again, I really appreciate the proposal that the Triad Research Group and Dr. Salling presented, brings it to within about 8.1. Now, yes, those are somewhat tighter, but you're not getting down to where it's really a tremendously significant difference. And then the other proposals we'd seen, your option 2 or the league's proposal, are in the 9-point-something range, like where you are, 9.3 or 9.7. And again, I've said it before about these proposals, and I will say it again, it's not to criticize those, it is to say we have all seen, no matter how much we mix up this map, it's very difficult to adhere to the criteria we have a big part of which is not dividing communities other than Cleveland, which must be divided at least 3 times into at least 4 districts. Now, to that end of dividing other communities, I took a look at this, and I told Mr. Casel this after one of the meetings earlier this week. He had said at the end of a meeting, well, then maybe the solution is to take X number of voters out of Fairview Park and move them into Cleveland. And so I did that. I said, well, what if we took, let's say, wards 1 and 3 of Fairview Park, and what if we moved those into District 2? How would that play out across the course of the map? I'll tell you what I came to is I could get maybe a little bit better. I could get down, it's the only option I've seen that got it under 8. It got it to 7.96% total variance. But it really violates one of the key criteria that is right in our charter of forming these districts by combining existing areas of local government, not by dividing them further. So with that, I would say you've given us an option that is no less compact than the current map. It's not any more compact either. It is no real change there. But that you really have done very good work getting us to as far as we are. So I hope that us adopting that 10% standard assists you in bringing what you now have before us as response number 1. It sounds like you have at least a couple technical items to clean up, but if we were prepared to adopt that, how much time would it take to have that prepared for us?
I am going to yield to my colleague, Mr. Cassidy, to answer that exact question. My guess is it's a very short period of time. We could actually probably even make those changes right today, this afternoon, if it was so desired. But I don't want to speak to him, but I do want to just echo what you said about dividing communities, because we too took a look at that, both not only with Fairview Park, but also with Euclid as well. It kind of, there were 2 ends where we thought that might help address the issue that we were in District 7. If we had broke a portion of Euclid off and put it into District 10, for example, that would have allowed us to take some of District 10 and put it into District 7. But we did look at it at both ends, and it did get us that deviation range closer. And I don't know if you want, I mean, at this point, it's probably not worth getting into the details on that, but we also took a look at that, just so you're aware. And we did look at many other options that we did not bring forward for a variety of reasons, because it seemed to make things worse rather than better. But let's see if we can get Mr. Cassidy back on.
Yes, Mr. Resnick, that's approximately right. I would just want someone or someones to look over my shoulder, make sure that they are all accounted for before submitting. But the changes themselves would not take very long at all.
What other decision points do we have then?
That is it from our perspective. That is all we have.
And without me either using the internet access on my phone or getting something else from you, I'm not aware of what is the population impact of moving 15Q. What is that going to do to this proposal?
No. Oh, it's also a vacant parcel.
It's also a vacant one. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I think we're at a point then, at a minimum, we can move on. You have one more item in your presentation.
Just in terms of outreach, I did want to add that we've continued from last night even to make outreach, and frankly, it's why we got some additional comments today that came in as a direct result of that. I think we addressed some of those comments, but the presentations that were made today, we do appreciate, and so the outreach, even between last night and today, did not end. We kept pushing on that as well. And then in addition, the website is getting updated constantly. So for those of you who need to find information or seeking information, I don't know that the new maps have been added. Oh, they are already on there. Okay, since they came in a couple minutes before the meeting today, they're already up on the site for review. So the public does have access to them as well.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Lumpkin.
I had discussions with Reverend Small out there in the hallway. Reverend Small is part of a group called the Baptist Ministers, and there's two other major groups in the city of Cleveland. And I mentioned to him that one of the things that I think needs to be really aggressively looked at among the clergy is how to get this process, this information, this exercise to his parishioners. And he mentioned that maybe someone, after this all over with, maybe someone can come and address the various groups about this process that we just went through. I think that would be a really important thing to do. They are the sort of the eyes and the ears out there in terms of getting information, correct information out there about this process. So I would urge my colleagues and to join me and maybe the county should think about how to go about getting this information. I mean, I know you have your regular outreach program that you're going to put together that basically deals with websites and things like that, but the actual going out there and meeting, they meet maybe once every 2 months. And when I say they, I mean the various groups, the minister groups out here. And I personally know who they are, you know, and they're pretty strong in the city of Cleveland. And so I think you need to give that some thought as to maybe someone go out there and talk to them and tell them what this process was all about so that they can get that information to their people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Olympian. In fact, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you had a moment to speak with Reverend Small. It also brings to mind a point, both from two of our public commenters now, Reverend Small and Lear, that look, we are not able to consider in our map drawing those who were not counted in the census. We have to go with the census results as they are. We also can't predict the future. And so while the commenter who had said where may some anticipated future refugee populations go, they will likely go, as has happened in the past, into our center city or inner ring suburbs. But we can't predict that, nor can we consider that when we're drawing a map today. But what I can say is it gives me comfort to know that the map that we have drawn, at least it isn't backwards on those issues. In other words, if there are fewer voters counted by the census in the districts, let's say 7 and 8 and 10, which are some of the lowest ones, while I can't consider that, okay, there are probably a lot of undercounted people there, the studies tell us that there are. And rather than having it flipped the other way around and having where we had packed all of the voters in the city of Cleveland into too few of districts with larger populations that were above the ideal, then we would really have that factor backwards. And so I think for the future, although we can't predict it, Mr. Lumpkin, I think your thought is spot on. In fact, we heard Councilwoman Conwell speak to this as well, that starting early, getting better education into the community so that people understand the impact that it plays out then after the census. But it does, those factors do give me even greater comfort on this map that it is representative of our population.
So just to, I appreciate the comments. I think you are 100% correct about that. Just, we did, in particular, in fact, when we were hoping to do meetings out in the field, we were hoping Dr. Macon had offered his facility to us, but because of COVID, COVID concerns, we were unable to actually have one of the meetings there. But we did reach out in particular to not just to United Pastors in Mission, but to other faith-based groups as well. Minister Marcus Gould, who's been with us at various meetings and has been helping us with outreach into the faith-based community, and certainly Destiny Henton has as well. And so they are part of it. But I think to your point, having that direct communication, person-to-person contact is very important. And, I think having that dialogue does help for a better process. So thank you for that. So I think to clarify, if I understood correctly, if you were about the question about whether we could, how long it would take to produce the final map, I don't know if this is possible, but I will ask you, the question is, if we were able to take probably a brief recess, if you were interested in doing that, we could probably do this in short order in probably 15 or 20 minutes and get you that, go over those issues with the BOE right now and have Matt make those changes in real time and then have that back if that is a desire of the group.
So I will respond first on this one. Usually I've deferred to the other members first, but I will tell you my one inclination that I want to, or at least one thought I want us to consider. I think we now know a map we're all comfortable with voting to approve. We do have out there that we had planned to have a meeting on Monday. We know that Mr. Kazel cannot be with us on Monday. But there could be value in signaling this is the map we intend to adopt, and convening on Monday. Yes, it does give more time for more ideas to be thrown in the mix and potentially create confusion, but I intend to consider anything that comes before us between now and Monday and at that meeting. But I also know, I believe I've looked at every possible option that's been presented, and even some that I came up with looking before we started. I do think that in the interest of transparency and involvement, there is something to be said about reconvening on Monday to consider and cast our final vote.
I would concur with that, Mr. Chairman.
I agree. Does anyone, or would anyone consider getting back together tomorrow, or do you think that's too soon?
It would be, okay.
And we'd already kind of have put out Monday to the public. If
Let me pose a slightly different question than to Mr. Kazel. Seeing where we are.
I'm not canceling my vacation if that's the question.
We're not asking you to stay. What I am saying is, are you comfortable with where we are in this process? And do you feel you've got everything you need to make a decision, even if you can't be here to cast a vote on Monday? I
am very confident, and I think I've already expressed that and agreeing with the other colleagues on our commission, so yes.
And so do you have any objection to us proceeding without you on Monday?
My feelings will be hurt, but I have no objection to it. So.
And we will duly excuse your absence. We knew from the time we were setting the schedules that we were going to have this issue with.
And this was not the original plan. Originally, it was we're meeting every week until December, and then that got changed. So
understood. So I think you have that direction that rather than a 15-minute break, I think Mr. Cassidy can be reassured that he's going to have the time he needs to go over it and double and triple check it, and we will have all of those minor technical issues cleaned up by Monday.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I do believe I can attend the meeting via Zoom. If that, at least I know I can't vote or anything, but I'd like to still take it to the end.
You not only can vote, we would welcome your comments from Zoom.
Okay.
It's just that the law doesn't allow us to acknowledge your vote, but we will acknowledge your comment in lieu of vote.
Okay.
I didn't want to ask you to interrupt your vacation by coming on Zoom, but if you're willing to do that, I think that would be great if you can participate that way. All right. Yes. As we then turn to miscellaneous business, the only item I had anticipated having was if we were going to take a recess and vote today, I was inclined to open back up to more public comment today. I think we have made it very clear there will be time for public comment on Monday. There is the full weekend tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday, and before the meeting on Monday for any member of the public to consider this plan that we intend to adopt at our meeting on Monday. Any other final comments from members of the commission?
I would just like to add that I'm all for transparency and openness, but I don't want to give someone false hopes that if they submit a new plan that contains things that we've already discussed, such as moving Rocky River and Brook Park, that we've all kind of agreed that's not something that we would be willing to accept, we find advantageous. They're free to submit that, but we probably have already addressed that issue. So just to throw that out there.
Understood, and I agree with those sentiments. Any other comment?
Could we also be emailed the changes
Yes.
over the weekend, tomorrow, whatever,
Right.
so that we can see
Yeah.
that for ourselves, so that when we come in Monday, we will have already had our opportunity to see I know they're very minor, but just so we can feel comfortable that we have the total package here for that.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we will certainly strive to get it posted on the website sooner than 15
Yes,
minutes before the
yes.
meeting today, so.
Is there any other miscellaneous business that any commissioner would like to bring forward?
No,
Seeing
thank you.
none, is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mr. Lumpkin.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Morgan. All in favor? Aye.
Okay?
Any opposed? Nope. We stand adjourned. Thank you.